So imagine your mood is like a thermostat, right? But it's wired directly to the weather outside. Sunny day, the heater blasts, and if it's raining, the AC just freezes you out.
Yeah, you have absolutely no control over the dial whatsoever.
Exactly. Today we're taking a deep dive into the philosophy of Eckhart Tolle to figure out how to finally close the windows and set that dial yourself. Because in a recent live talk, someone asked him a really simple question. They asked, "Are you happy?"
And his answer was a flat-out no, which I love because he completely rejects the word. He says conventional happiness is basically a play of opposites.
Like the theater masks, right? Comedy and tragedy.
Right, they're inextricably linked. I mean, we usually only feel happy because some external thing temporarily altered our state.
Which he actually jokes about. He says, couples are perfectly happy right up until they start living together.
Yeah, it gets a huge laugh. But the underlying mechanic there is ruthless. If your joy relies entirely on an external circumstance, that exact same circumstance will eventually be the source of your frustration.
Because the pendulum always swings back.
Exactly. Whatever external thing makes you happy guarantees an eventual crash into unhappiness when that thing, changes or disappears.
Right. So that inevitable crash is why Tolle points us towards something totally different. He calls it an intensely alive peace. But the hurdle is how you actually get there, because he says it's by surrendering thought.
Which can sound incredibly abstract to a lot of people.
Totally.
But it becomes super practical when you look at the mechanics of the mind. It's really about separating your core sense of self from that endless monologue in your head. Because most of our psychological pain comes from the mind constantly agonizing over past regrets or like projecting disasters into the future.
So when you stop giving your attention to that mental movie, your body's physical stress response literally shuts off.
Exactly. If you aren't actively thinking about your life's problems right in this exact second, there are essentially no problems. There's just the present moment.
Okay, I have to hit pause here, though, because to a modern listener, that can sound completely out of touch. I mean, with so much actual suffering and war and poverty in the world right now, just shutting off your mental movie to focus on your own internal peace feels incredibly selfish.
Like sticking your head in the sand while the world burns.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Tolle argues the exact opposite. If you say, I refuse to experience peace until there is no more suffering in the world, you will literally be waiting forever. Look at the mechanics of action.
Right, because if you go out to fix the world, but you're carrying deep internal misery or resentment, that toxic energy bleeds into every interaction.
Precisely. You end up inadvertently spreading the very hostility you're trying to cure.
It's a massive paradox. You really cannot export peace if you don't have it in stock yourself.
That is such a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And it completely reframes why figures like the Buddha or Jesus both pointed inward first. The end of global suffering fundamentally relies on individual baseline peace.
Wow. And we can see the catastrophic danger of ignoring that inner work, right? Tolle points out that when we lack that alive peace, our minds desperately seek an identity to fill the void.
Oh, absolutely. We start clinging to labels, like our politics, our nationality, our religion. And when millions of unhappy people do this together, you get a collective ego.
Which is that deeply unconscious us versus them tribalism that fueled the major violent conflicts of 20th century Europe.
Right, and that macro-level destruction is terrifying. But the exact same mechanic applies on a micro level in our daily routines.
Like walking into a meeting with a notoriously difficult coworker, or talking to someone who strongly disagrees with you politically.
Exactly. If you're operating from that collective ego, you automatically judge and categorize them as an enemy before they even open their mouth.
But when you operate from interconnectedness, that automatic judgment just drops. You interact with them as a complex human being in the present moment rather than like a two-dimensional label.
And that shift in your own consciousness instantly alters the dynamic of the room. You naturally de-escalate conflicts because you aren't feeding them with your own ego.
Tolle actually brings some great levity to this concept. He mentions that famous advice, be the change you want to see in the world.
Oh, right. He jokes that he isn't sure if Gandhi or Mandela said it.
Yeah, so he just credits the one consciousness for the quote. But the liberating takeaway for you listening today is that you don't need to be a fully enlightened spiritual master to make a difference.
No, you don't have to solve global politics before dinner. Just by undergoing the process of finding your own peace, your state of consciousness elevates.
You become a stabilizing force simply by how you exist and react in your daily life.
So step away from the thermostat. Stop chasing the pendulum of external happiness and inevitable unhappiness.
Because cultivating that intensely alive inner peace is the most practical blueprint you have to genuinely improve your day and, by extension, the lives of everyone you interact with.
True systemic change has to start from within.
Definitely. So the next time you feel completely outraged and stressed out by a massive global problem, take a breath and ask yourself, is your internal distress actually contributing a new drop of madness to the very world you were hoping to fix?